All right, so we should be going here. So we'll get back going. 1 sec, getting the screen set up. All right. So last we stopped on Tuesday. I was starting to show you a little bit of live trace and what can be done. And then um, in this case, I kind of kept working with it. We made that bicentennial star, I think right before class ended, and then I decided to play a couple more minutes. So we're going to just kind of start back from that and continue on with our little Illustrator journey. And then I have a little Illustrator exercise for you guys to work on over the weekend. And we'll do that. I have to resaving. Cool. Resave, send. Like I said, I'll get the stuff to you. And if there's an issue, don't sweat. We got time. Nothing's getting turned in. Well, things are getting turned in, but don't sweat if it's late, that type of thing. So, all right. So today we're gonna deal with some color and some gradients. Going to do some type things, which are a little bit different with Illustrator. I think you'll find these things are pretty cool. All right. So Tuesday we did this live trace of this picture from Joshua Tree, and yes, Bruce Blackburn, I believe, is the one who made the star. I believe he just passed away recently. I remember seeing it in my news feed. So questions about this kind of live trace. So we did it quickly, but I just want to see what questions you might have. We will cover it again more because it is an important component for Illustrator and the work you do. And you know, it's a really great way to kind of bring it all together. And in a lot of ways, it can be incredibly helpful and a really great starting point as you start to design. Any questions on that so far? You guys all good? With the silence, I will assume there is no question. All right. So what I did with this the other day was I had this component, and then we did the live trace of the bicentennial seal, and then I added a gradient here. So I'm going to go over a gradient, and I just kind of added a border to it, just kind of make a poster, and we're just going to kind of work this whole thing up into a little piece of art. So first I'm going to just kind of give it a little bit of an enlargement. Just going to blow it up a little bit, make it fit a little bit better on my 8.5 by 11 screen. So you'll see here we have different layers. Everything is built into this one layer, and then they're kind of done together. So we talked about in Illustrator how layers kind of have sub layers or groups built in. And sure, let me just, yeah, we are recording. And I am sharing, right? You guys got this? Making sure. Yes, you can see my screen. Somebody good? Yes. All right. Okay. So I'll hit shake. All right. So here we can see, for example, with the bicentennial star, how it is broken down into different components. And if we click with the direct select tool, we can start to see those individual components. Should we want to modify them? You know, in this particular case, it's a good way to kind of maybe change the colors. You know, so if I wanted something other than the red or other than the blue, I could do that, or even other than the white if I wanted to. I could select that area. It's going to become a component here. And again, I'm going to go that. And if I double click on it, I can take it into isolation mode. And we can see the paths that are in line here. Okay, so if you double click too far and you get this kind of thing start to gray out, if you look up top here, you'll see what you're doing. Right now we're in layer 2, it's a group, and we're in the path mode. Okay, so if you click too far and you're like, oh God, I can't do anything, things aren't working, just kind of click up here again and click that arrow and it will end the isolation mode. Okay, I think early on when you're starting to work, you don't even think about it. You're like, what happened? You got into isolation mode, which is fine. And the whole point of that is to let you get into a certain component of your illustration without having to worry about the other components of that um, illustration as you're working. Okay, so you can narrow in, basically we'll say focus down on certain elements and allow you to work and deal with just that element and not have to deal with all the other things that are connected to that. Particularly comes into handy when something like this. Again, you can see this is all components of the Joshua Tree rocks. And we're going to literally say, we're going to zoom down. We're going to probably say hundreds, maybe 1,000 different paths in there. And you can see, some of them are just real tiny little parts. Okay, in fact, most of them are tiny little parts. Okay, so the isolation mode will allow us to get into just that part. So here I am, I've click, and I'm basically clicking down. And now I'm in isolation mode. You can see up top here, layer 2 group, and then we're in a group component here. And it lets me get that one particular item. And if I scroll down through my layers palette here, at some point one will pop in, it'll show red over here, and that will be that component. I'm still scrolling. Again, there's hundreds of pieces here, maybe thousands. I'm still, oh, there it is. I'm scrolling, I just passed it. Here it is right here. So this is that component. Okay, so know that this isolation mode is important to help you find one component, but also to help you work and modify and change things as needed. Okay, so when you're in there and you're like, something's not going on, it looks weird, it's like grayed out, you're in the isolation mode, look at the top, just click the back arrow and that will take you back to the normal mode that you guys are used to working in. Okay, but no, it gets a little confusing. Okay, and I'm going to close this down because all of those sub layers are in there. It's a bazillion. Okay, so right now they're all kind of closed up. It makes it a little bit easier to see what we're doing. All right, so let's start with, we did a little bit of colors. I want to kind of touch on that a little bit more. And we're going to touch on the gradient, and then we're going to get into some type today. So you should have basic swatches that pop up. I'm going to say 99% of the time they will pop up. Sometimes if you've done some things or changes, you don't get your swatches, but if you don't, you can load them. Okay. So ways that you can do this is these are showing you the views, and we can do open swatch library, which gives you components here, or you click on this and you also get the libraries. So let me show you what some of those are. We're going to get into the Panatone system. We talked about that briefly in Photoshop. And again, these are the color systems, these down here, basically the Panatone, that are used throughout the world to kind of color identify. So if I call out a special color, I'm able to kind of select it here, but I'm also, it's a color I can like transpond or let people know what color we're using. So I'm going to go with the difference here is CMYK, coded, uncoded. This is basically giving, you're picking a PMS color, but it's going to make it the CMYK equivalent, okay? When you're printing a pure PMS number or color, Um, it is mixed up by the printers to be an exact color, and they're printing that color alone, um, as opposed to CMYK where we're blending colors. Okay, so if you ever hear of something doing a 4-color process, that's CMYK. If they do 5, 6 color, they might be CMYK plus 1 Pantone, or CMYK plus 2 Panatones, or CMYK plus a Pantone plus an aqueous coat, which might be a clear coating on top to help protect it from UV light and so forth. So when you hear printing of 4 colors, 6 color, 8 color, what they're doing is all of those kind of items. And if you've ever done like silk screening or those kind of things, um, same kind of idea where you're doing a color at a time as you print. So I'm going to just do a CMYK. We're going to just do the solid coated. These are just pure PMS colors. Again, if there's confusion, just chime in and I can go through it. But I'm going to click on that, and we get these Panatone swatches. Let me get this opened up for you. Oh, come on. Open. Okay. So these are Panatone swatches that are, and I know they're Panatone swatches, one, because we've got that little corner, right? That little white corner with a dot, that's telling me it's a spot color. There's a tiny little spot in there. And as I scroll over, I get these things called, it says Panatone 114, 1225C, and the C stands for coated, 7551, and they're all numbers, and they're in no particular, there's an order to it, but there's no particular numbering order, meaning I'm at 166 here, and if I go immediately down, it's 1675. If I go right, it's 67. If I go left, it goes to 64. Okay, so they will sometimes skip numbers, you'll find, and then they go up, like, so here's a 75, 76. I put in after 168. What is basically a new color that's gonna put in, and then they will go down and jump around. So the numbers don't really matter. It's just a reference number, but it is the colors, and you can again pick colors here if you want and use those in the project. So you don't have to mix up a purple. You can go, well, I really like that purple, and click it, and it will be that purple. Okay. So in this point, I'm on my border, and they made my border that color. Let's say I don't want that. I want a darker blue. I can click that again. Again, it's giving me a different color, and these, you could mix this, but they're already here. And it adds it over here to my swatches. You can see that 2745. So any Panatone color I want, I can switch it here and click it. And there are Panatone swatch books. They look like the kind of paint swatches you get at the hardware store. And if you ever gotten a big paint swatch book, the Panatones come in the same way, right? They come in this little swatch book, and you're able to look at the colors. And they're obviously bigger than this, and you can kind of look at them a little bit better. So this is a Pantone color, and it is marked as such. And it's again, it's a specific color. If I double click on it, it will kind of show you what that is. If I click a CMYK, that is the mixture of that color. But basically, you don't want to kind of mess with this too much. You want to kind of leave that color alone if that's the one you want. If you're not using a color, you can hit delete, and it will take that swatch away, so you don't have to use it. Okay, just to keep your kind of thing clear, I typically get rid of any unused colors up here, especially when it comes to the Panatone or the swatches. So that's one library that we can use. Another one I use probably even more than the Panatone are these other ones in here. So earth tone, foods, gradient boxes, nature. So I'm going to pull up nature, and let me pull up foliage. And it's basically going to give me a set of preset colors um, that work at trees or fall trees. And I can take this whole thing and drag it over by clicking on the folder and just dragging it into my swatches. Or I could click individual colors and use those and just drag those over. Okay, so I can either make groups, okay, a new color group, or I can drag individual colors over to reuse in my particular work. Because, you know, oftentimes we're trying to kind of do new things and we want to pull out the colors that will work for that project. And again, this is Adobe's way of kind of giving you some presets. Okay, so if you're working on, I don't know, some art history and you're like, doing this thing and I want to kind of feel pop artist. So you can click it and it gives you some basic colors of pop art. Okay. Are they right or wrong? I don't know, but they give you kind of a starting point to work with for color. So that's always kind of exciting to do it that way. And again, I use these all the time. Really works well for something like metallics. You want something that's kind of like, you know, it's copper, but it's like, or it's silver. What is silver? Well, these are good colors that kind of work to make a silver or bronze or copper or gold type of thing. So know that these libraries are incredibly helpful as you go. They do have things like analogous and complementary colors. Okay, so analogous are colors that go together, right? So they're already kind of pre-done in many ways. So as you start to know color and learn color, Illustrator's kind of set up for it. Okay, it's designed to help you through those. Okay, there's some basic patterns that are in here. They're just in the color area. You don't know, nature foliage. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Okay, so we got some patterns that came up. You know if I've ever used these, tell you the truth, but they're built into the Illustrator. Yeah, if you want to use it, you use it. If you don't, feel free to move on to something else. Okay. All right, so let me pull out some more here. One second. Art history did corporate. Again, it's going to give me some colors that might work in some kind of corporate structure. Metals, foliage. So if you get one you don't want, so like let's say the metal we don't want, if you right click with your mouse, you can just hit close and that will get rid of it. And it's kind of keeping the groups that you had open already. Okay. And they're coming up as the colors. If I don't want them, I can just close and I have what color panels or libraries that I want open. Okay. And I can double click on that tab and it kind of folds them away and I can kind of see them there. If I need it, I click on it to get my next set of colors coming on. Another way to access and play with color is the color themes panel. So next to the library panel, where we have all of these kind of options. And again, you can make up libraries and save them. Okay, so you can bring these in later on down the line or make them up for a particular brand or company. We have this color theme. So Adobe color themes. It used to be called Adobe Color or Color. And what this does is allow you to kind of play around with colors and how they relate to each other. So you can come up with more dramatic or more dynamic ways of doing things. So right now we're in the color themes. And as you see, I move one around, it's kind of keeping them in line together to kind of keep them as a kit, keep them as a color palette. Now, so right now I'm kind of creating it, then I can kind of click to activate it, click to select color from an active color, and I can here add to swatches. So if I want this set of colors, and I'm going to actually darken them a little bit, I'm just going to pull them in a little bit, and that's going to change them out. Like you can see, they're all moving together. I'm getting 5 colors, and I'm going to click it, add to swatch, and you see I got it loaded up now over here in my colors. swatches. Okay. They also have things by Explore. Let's see if we can get this working here. So these are color swatches or themes that people have made up. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. Somebody spent some time and went through and kind of got some colors working together. And you can kind of just kind of scroll to see color themes that you might want or might work with your thing. So this is kind of interesting. This might work with this. I mean, going along with the idea of the Joshua Tree hills here kind of monochromatically, I say maybe I like this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to add the swatches and I put them in over here. And now I can kind of maybe start doing some things with this. So I got some browns that are close, but maybe I want this red to be, I'll click here, get my red going. I'll swatch this out. I want it to be that red. Okay, so I'm just kind of working some colors here. Maybe I want this to be the blue. I'm just kind of hitting these things, going into isolation mode. And again, I'm working this from a color swatch that I found online, just to kind of create something new and different. Oops, all right, I want to isolate that more.
What's the hotkey for isolation mode?
Just double click it. Just keep clicking on your mouse.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Just like almost like triple click it and it takes it into isolation mode. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And again, know that we added these colors, but I'm like, it's not quite working. I want a little bit lighter. I can double click on these colors. Just because I brought them in as a swatch doesn't mean that I can't still use them. Okay, so I might want to I want to lighten this up a little bit. And I'm going to do that, click OK. It's basically lightening that. And the same thing here, I can click on this teal greenish color. I want to just kind of darken it a little bit. So I'm going to keep in the blues, but I want to kind of change it all over. So again, I modified and I changed it, but I used that as kind of a basis to get going as something I found online. It kind of just inspired me like, hey, what if I do it a little bit more kind of retro colors with this star, and will it work? Yeah, I think it works pretty well. I might want to click here on my gradient and give it the same color red on the border. But there's hundreds in here, right? So I mean, thousands, I know that. So you can go through and you can even search, people name things. So if I do in like sea, ocean, it gives me files that people have named, you know, sea waves, city, sea. So it's giving me names that people have kind of called their swatches. Okay, so you can kind of search any way you want, type the word clown, and I'm going to get people that have made color swatches that are related maybe to a clown to them, or those kind of color palettes. Lastly, in there are some themes, and let me see what's going to pop up here. We keep changing these around. I think this is where we can save our items to themes. We can make color themes up here. That's what this is. They keep adding things into this. So the Explorer is kind of quite nice. And then the create, and know that we can kind of name these items. We can play with the colors in a slider pattern if we want. On the wheel, we can tell it right now it's on analogous colors, but if we want a triad, you see it puts the 3 colors, okay, kind of away. If we want shades, it's going, in this case, shades of the color that we pick. Right, so you can kind of see it's pulling up other colors. If I want, just shades of green. Compound, this is kind of like making this kind of weird set. And again, as we move things in and out and around, it's going to give me colors that work with it. And again, these are kind of basically scientifically done. All right, so they're complete monochromatic. It's colors that are similar, lights and darks in there. And then we've got the analogous, which are colors that are related to each other and kind of opposite there on the wheel, and complementary, complete opposite on the wheels, right? So we can kind of work those around, and it's going to give me a series of colors that work in a palette. Okay, so if you're having troubles mixing, like what color goes with blue, well, you can come to here to blue and kind of work and see, do I want light, do I want dark, do I want colors the opposite? So again, I got that high contrast, or do I want colors that kind of go close to the blue? Right, so they're in the monochromatic. And again, it's giving me all of these. Once I'm happy with the colors that have been selected, I can save them. Okay, I can save those to my swatches. So know that this is a really cool way of kind of making new colors as you go that will work for your particular project. And again, you can kind of pull things in and out to make highlights and shadows with the color wheels. Okay, getting colors that stand out or colors that kind of go together. All right, questions on that? Does that kind of make sense? All right, so once you get something cool, save it, and you're good to move forward. But play with the create, play with the explore. Like I said, I think this is kind of a cool item. This started out as an online thing, and then they kind of built it into Illustrator. And Photoshop doesn't have it, but this is something you'll find in Illustrator to work with. All right, so that's the Adobe Color. Again, to get to that, it's next to the library icon down here. It says Open Color Themes. That's what that is. Okay. You can look at swatches in different ways. Okay. Right now we're in kind of a square or pattern. If you want to look at them as a numbered way or name way, you can rename them this way. I'm 99% of the time like this. And you can edit all of your colors. And again, you'll see, get rid of that panel. Oh, come on. You can see you can edit here again. Okay, so another way, I'm in the foliage, and this is what the colors are. And I can select individual colors to modify. If I want a little bit different red, I can kind of move that out or move that in and out to give me a little bit lighter or darker. And it's going to change things up. Okay, so again, this is the same kind of color wheel that we saw before. And again, just kind of mess with it. Again, you're not going to do anything wrong. Okay, it's all just digital, and you can. It's still going to keep the originals that you had in the beginning if you go back and load it back up. All right, so I'm going to cancel that, and then we'll also want to kind of go through gradients. There is a gradient swatch. Okay, so under library is gradients, and they've got again a bazillion. They look like they're duplicates, but they are different. So I'm going to do foliage gradients, and you'll see here are the gradients for foliage. It's the same name, but it's different, right? These are greens and such. So I'm going to click on this item here. We're in the gradient mode, so I can just click a gradient. Okay, so we have something like that. That's kind of nice. The cool thing is, again, we can modify the gradients, okay, to whatever way we want. Okay, so we're going to open up the gradient panel, and this is showing the gradient that we're currently using, Foliage 18 it's called. I can change the angle. Okay, so we're going from light to dark, and that's a 90. If I want to go the other way, it's a minus 90, dark to light. I'm gonna zoom out so you can see there a little bit. So I'm basically changing the angle. And I could do it 45, it's angled the other way, or minus, it's gonna go 45 the other way. Okay, so I'm basically turning the gradient as I go. And again, it's mathematically working. So it's dark to light. Well, maybe I want the other way, so I'm gonna go 90. I want light to dark with that. But I can also change it. Meaning right now it's a 3-color gradient that we got going on. And we can see those colors down on this kind of line. The diamonds are the breakpoints, meaning where it goes from this color to this color. So at that diamond, it's like a half of one, a half of the other, and it's going to split off. If I move the diamond, you can see I can change what's going to be happening with that gradient. Okay, I can change it all, and you can see it's subtly changing, but I can modify that gradient along. I can also double click on the color and make it a new color, right? So right now it's showing me the color that's there, that gray. But if I want to be, I don't know, say blue, click the blue, and you can see it changed that color to there. Undo, I'm taking it back to where I was. So I can modify the colors that I've got going on. I can also up here, right now we're dealing with the gradient in a linear way. I can also make it a radiant. You can see it's coming out of a center. And it's thinking here 1 second. And then this is a free form where it's got colors in here, and I'm not sure where these colors come from. Let me get this back to where I want it to be. What this is, what it's letting you do is kind of move the colors around to kind of push them into different points. Okay, this is really kind of good when you have maybe an object you're trying to tone it or give it definition, right? So you may have drawn, I don't know, a flower, and you want the light to be kind of coming out the petal, and you can kind of do this freeform gradient and change the colors as we go to others, and kind of make a freeform. So I've used that before, but not a lot for me, okay? But it is something you should be aware of. So here's the more radiant, and you can kind of see here where it gives me the options of making the circle and also playing with the light and how it's coming off of it. You can kind of see it's boom, kind of like a flood of light coming out of the area. I'm going to just do this lightning behind my star. I'm going to just kind of move that up. It's kind of like it's got a little kind of gradient glow coming behind it. I don't know if I like that. I think that the linear was better for me. Oops. One off of that. I'm going to put that back to a 90. Dark to light. Move that back here. A little bit lighter at the bottom. Okay, so modifying the gradient. Again, looking at it as you go. Again, nothing's kind of set in stone. You're allowed to modify, and you should be, right? You guys are artists, you are guys are designers. So you should be, looking at what's there and not just doing it because, oh, that's what the computer did by default. No, you should be doing what you need to do to make it look right graphically. Just checking my center line here on this. Something was off a little bit. Okay. So we played with color, with the picking swatches from the swatch library. We looked at existing colors in your swatch library. Again, just double click on them. It opens up the pop-up panel and you can kind of change that if you want. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. You can open up libraries, which are basically pre-saved, and these are great starting points for doing work. Okay, so do these. I do these a lot, right? I mean, they got basic colors. It gets me in my mind to where I want it to be, and then I can go through and modify as I need to. We also have the color themes. Okay, we can create with them, or we can go through and explore what others may have come up with that might work. You know, we're doing here. We're going to go retro flag. So these are quote rust. I did retro flag, and it did desert flag, dusted flag, retro France flag. So it gives me a series of templates that people may have made. Okay, just again gives me kind of a starting idea. And look, this one's pretty close to where we are with what we're doing here. Similar kind of colors way. All right. And then lastly, we talked about gradients. Again, we have a gradient panel that we opened in the library, and we did the foliage gradients. Okay. And then we're able to modify them once we had them done by clicking here and adjusting the sliders or adjusting the colors. And we can also adjust the grading as to how it's working. This is a linear gradient, a radial gradient, and it's the kind of the free form over here. Okay, so knowing that you can adjust these things will allow you to get to the gradient that you want. To just draw an object with a gradient, I'm just going to draw this box over here. We have a box, and actually, let me default that. All right, so I'm going to draw a box, and right now it's magenta. But if I hit the gradient tool, I can go through and draw a gradient. Come on. Computer's not working. Come on. One second. Okay. So I double clicked on it. That was trying to drag, but it wasn't. Let me go back. Double click with the grade. It's on the gradient tool, and I get the gradient built in, and then I can kind of go through and adjust like we were doing. It defaults back to where I was with the gradients. Okay, so I can make up my own gradients if I want. I'm going to give that a third color over here. Okay, and I can kind of switch those. Around. Okay, so I can make and build my gradients this way too with the gradient tool. I can tell you a lot of times I will start with a pure gradient and then go in and modify it. But this is, again, it's another way of working it and putting gradients over your objects with that. All right. Okay. Questions on that? That make sense? Anybody? All right. So let me spend a couple moments starting about type. We'll spend more time on type 2 as we go. All right, so I'm trying to get this in place, and what I'm going to do is end up adding some type. above this area. So in Illustrator, it is a pretty strong type tools, but again, I'm not doing, I'm not going to type a book out on this. The Illustrator is not designed for that, but it is designed to do some basic type. You can do some small type areas also. And if we under type tool, we see a variety of ways that we can work. There's the basic type tool. You can put type within an area, type on a path, type vertical, type vertical, a vertical area type tool, type along a path, vertical, and then we have the touch type tool. So I want to kind of just go through some basic ones real quick, so you get an idea for what they can do. So the basic one is just the type tool. And basically, there are two things I can do. I can click and drag to kind of define my type area, and you can see it drops in some dummy type. Okay, so if I'm trying to mock up something, that kind of helps. I can also just kind of click, and you see in my case, mine's defaulted to go to dummy type. That Lipsum Aurum, which pops up. Now I have my type here. So my character is this Ronaldo, and it's a 12 point. So I can just enlarge it here. I can pick my type from here. I can also type it in and just kind of drag it. So if I hold my shift as I drag, I'm proportionally moving my type up in size. Okay, so let me type in something here just so we can see what it's doing. So I just have the word Joshua Tree typed in. And again, if I want to scale, I can either just hold the shift and go up and down. And I can tell you I do this most of the time. And I'll pay attention to the numbers. Okay, I could care less what it is. I want to make it look proportional. But if you know you want to be a certain size, you can do it. Right? I might start out with 72 as a starting point. But if I want to go bigger, I have to either type in the larger number or I can just simply drag it. Okay, and you'll see it enlarges as I go here with it. And this type panel is basically the same as we would see in Photoshop, or we're going to see in InDesign. Right, so most of these components are the same. Now to change the color, I see up top here under type, I've got my text, and I can change my colors based on the swatch or double clicking on it. Right, to bring up my panels, which allows me to select from there. I can also use my eyedropper tool and select a color that's on my artwork and pick the color that way. Okay, so if I'm like, I want this beige, but I don't know where it was or what color it was, I can click. And even something like the artboard is white and it knows it's white. Okay, so I can just kind of click with the eyedropper tool and it will change that color out. Similar to we learned in Photoshop, we can adjust the leading, which is the space between lines. We can also adjust the tracking, which is the space between letters. Okay, so out spreads them out. You got more gap between letters. Negative brings them tighter. Okay, so we're bringing them closer together. And again, we're all looking at legibility, but it also has to do with visually, right? If something's got more gap, many times it feels like it's more open because it is, right? And so if we're trying to type something that make it feel like it's an open, accessible kind of thing, we might want to track it out a little bit. Whereas if we're trying to make it like confining, we might literally want to make the letters confining and tighten them up. Okay. And again, it's just about the aesthetics of how things go. It's -10. Let me just see here. So that's the 0. I'm going to make it so they're just kind of touching 25. And I'm going to type in a second line, just hitting return. So I have Geometry Rocks It. I have my paragraphing styles here. So I can fit, in this case, we're going to center, and it's center, and just kind of moved it over. And I've got my leading, which is space between. Right now it's coming up to 180 or 82. That's probably too much. I'm just going to play with this here, and you can see I can really tighten that up where they're overlapping, or just about overlapping. Okay, and I think this works. To me, I like tight leading, but that's up to me. But again, you got to watch right now because the R is over here. We're not hitting this J, but if I switch it over here, we can see that J and R are almost touching, or might happen to touch. So I'm going to pull this off center like this. I don't want to have the things too centered. I want to just kind of, and now in this case, I'm going to probably give it a little bit more tracking. I'm going to keep it 25, but I'm going to move the leading up a little bit. Maybe there. I'm going to put, I'm going to put in a number 68. Pull it back there. Okay. And again, you can use your arrows, right, left, up, and down to move things around, okay, on your keyboard. There's another way of moving things without using your mouse. Okay. Remember to save as you work. I'm going to hit save right now. Command S, under or file, save. Okay, make sure you're saving as you go, because you know at some point everything will crash and burn. You know, and we have the option to save. My daughter was playing her video game the other day on her iPhone, and some game, and it crashed. And it's like, I just worked an hour to get that score, and it crashed. But she couldn't save it, but it crashed. So we can save. So save it, and then you won't have the problem of losing your hours worth of work here. Okay, questions on that basic type thing? I didn't do a whole lot here. I just hit type, and we have the adjustments. We have, of course, all of our fonts that we can use, our multitude of fonts. We've got the leading and the tracking that we can do. Okay, and we can, these are like things that you can kind of do. You can stretch out letter. I don't know, I never do them, to tell you the truth. Basically, we're elongating the typefaces. I don't do it. But some people do. Just so you know, those are here, and the same thing this way. You know, if you have a need to stretch, you can do it. I don't, and if I did, I probably manually would do it, tell you the truth, instead of the computer. Down here we have things like if we're trying to do uppercase subcases. With that, you can underline. You have to strike through, those are kind of things. Superscripts and subscripts. Okay, so if we're like, 2 to the second power, rocks it 2. So I don't want to say 2, but I want to say 2 to the second power. Boom, it puts it up there, and it actually gives me some GIFs or glyphs to show me some alternate versions of that. Okay, rocks it squared. Okay, so those are the glyph or the adjustments there. If we want to do all type or caps, we can hit that. It pulls it into all caps. We can do this. It makes it upper lower caps. Okay, so these are kind of lower caps. Again, it's built in to do that, so I think it's perfectly fine. So if you want all caps, you don't have to type it all caps. You can just type regular and do this. So if you're like, I didn't like that, you could just go back to normal without having to retype it again. Okay. You can rotate the letter forms. Okay, if you had some reason to. Okay. I don't know. I guess you're good. All right. So that's one way. I don't know. I usually just would turn it. You can turn this way, whatever you want, but it's an option. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is, and we'll get into some of the other type as we go, but one I use a lot is called the touch type tool. So it says here, click a character. So I'm going to click on the J. And one, you're seeing it's giving me some alternatives, which we call glyphs. This is alternate J's that I could pick. And it gives me those, it shows me what those are. Okay. But more importantly, with the touch type tool, moving in here, it lets me adjust things with just one letter. So I'm going to say I'm going to keep that J, but I want to make that J a little larger. So if I just kind of go to the corner, I'm enlarging the J, but I'm not enlarging anything else. Okay. If I want to stretch that J, I can do that, but I'm not doing anything else. If I want to move that J, I can move that J around and everything will be relate to it as the way it was. I can also turn the J, kick it, get a little kick, and it will adjust. So let's say I kicked it, I'm gonna kick it this way. Now there's a huge gap between the O and the S coming over here. This just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right anyway, but I can click on the touch with the touch type tool to the O, and I'm just moving my arrows and I'm moving the O back into position, and it's bringing the other letters of the line with it. Okay, so it's a way that we can adjust letting and tracking, and we can do it on an individual basis, but also allows us to modify things as we go. So let me just pull back. I'm gonna go back to where we were. Okay, so we're here, we're back here. And I want to do, I'm going to get rid of this rock switch for now, just because I want to show you the touch type tool and how it works. So I'm going back to my touch type tool, and I want to make the J bigger. So again, I'm just going to enlarge just the J and nothing else move. And I want the O maybe a little tighter now. I can just manually pull that in. Likewise, I want the T to be larger. So I'm just kind of enlarging that. But I also want the T maybe to drop down. So I can just use a down arrow, kind of drop it below the baseline. And you can see it's showing me alternates too, which is kind of nice, right, if I want that. And I'm going to go to the R, and I'm going to tighten that up, bring it closer to the T. Maybe I want to go to the alternate. That might work. And then when I do that, I need to alternate and pull that E out a little bit. Actually, I'm going to keep the E the same base and pull the R up a little bit. Again, I can manually work with individual letters within my project. Okay. And then when I click it, they're all together, they're working. And what's cool about it is there's still what we call live type, meaning I can change it, right? If I don't want, Joshua Tree, I can type it into something else. I could type something else and it will type in. Okay, so it's all live text that's editable as we go. I'm just going back. Again, I'm just hitting Command Z a lot of times here. Move back to where we were in the beginning. Okay. All right. So that's the touch type tool. So the type tool and the touch type tool. These are pretty obvious, and we'll go through examples of that as we go. But the touch type tool allows you to move individual letters, change them, reshape them, enlarge them, shift them up and down. I use this tool a lot. I mean, this was kind of a really cool thing that they did. It used to be, in order to do that kind of stuff, we would have to, what we call outline our type. So right now, again, this is live type. I can modify it. I can type here. I can add, other letters in there if I needed to. But at some point you're going to want to outline your type, meaning it becomes a it doesn't become a it becomes not a font, but becomes basically shapes. And I do this when I send files to a printer to be printed. That way I don't have to worry about sending them the typeface and make sure they load that typeface. So in the very end, I call it you have to outline. So I'll save the file as like this, and then I'll do a outline, go to type, and you hear it says create outlines. And you'll see what it did is it made outlines of it. If I hit it with the direct select tool, you can see all the points now of the letters. Now this is cool because I might want to make some modifications on the typefaces, and I can do that here once I've created outlines. But I also would do this even if I was not making any changes. This way, when I send it to a printer to be done, it's now just a shape. It's not a type anymore. I can't modify it. I can't, use the type tool and click before the A and change the A into something else. Okay, so, but like I said, I can modify once I've done the outline. So maybe I want to, shorten these little points. Okay, so I can kind of zoom in, and you can see it's really 2 points there that converted. So I'm going to select them both. In fact, I'm going to click these over here too. So I'm selecting just the 4 points, and then I'm going to use my arrow, and I'm just clicking up, and you can see it's just kind of pushing them up. So I'm making a modification on that T by selecting points now. Okay, so it's like kind of modified. And we do this a lot, especially when we get to stuff like logo work, where we've got a basic typeface that we're working with, but we want to make changes. We want to kind of make it unique for that client, for that customer. And by making outlines with our typefaces, we can go in and do that kind of thing. And it might be something subtle. Like here, I'm going to maybe click on this, and I'm just going to maybe, pull the curve up a little bit. All right, so I'm just kind of pulling that handle up a little bit just to kind of curve it out a little more. Okay, so I can completely modify these typefaces once they're outlined. Okay, and again, I'm zooming in, and you can see I've got those points, and I can, modify as I go. And maybe I want this curved a little bit more. You can see I can curve them or sharpen them. Okay, so again, I'm just doing little basic modifications, but because they're outlined, I can do that. Remember, they're not editable type anymore. It's now just a shape that looks like the letter A. Okay, and I'm able to get in there and modify and change. Okay, with those. Make sense? So, again, we're going to start with the basic type, work it up, and then we're going to come back and use either maybe the touch type tool or outline it. So we can go in and maybe make some basic modifications to the typefaces themselves, the letters. Again, you wouldn't do this for a whole story or a whole article, but if you're working on a logo or a headline, you could definitely do it. It's not that much. There's not a lot of letters. That's not going to take that much time to do that. I could, spend some time, an hour or so, and kind of work this up to get the way I want. But remember, it's not editable anymore. Editable meaning I can't change the words. Okay, now they're just shapes. Make sense? Okay, so that's outlining. So if someone says outline your type or outline your typeface, that's what they're talking about, is selecting your type and going to type and creating outlines. Okay, it won't, it's already outlined, so it won't, but okay. Okay, so this is editable type. I can click it. I can click the letters. I can change it. Maybe I don't want the period. I can release, delete. Okay. Down here, it's outline type. Okay, and I can modify it by clicking and changing the shapes, and I can also move the forms around, but it's not editable, meaning I can't change it to another word. Make sense? Yes, I mean, again, this will be important as we start to work to type. and how that works. Um, all right, so last I want to kind of show us what kind of our exercise over the weekend is. On the web page, let me get the page up. On our website, we've got the newest videos. We have a thing called the Illustrator Exercise, and it's this little thing I kind of downloaded from Crayola. Everybody loves coloring. And I'm going to just kind of drag this over. Let me just save it. It's a PDF. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to open it up here. File, open. My downloads. See creatures, PDF. So it opened up, and you can see it recognizes it. It's in a layer here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a new layer. And I'm going to lock the layer below, which is my sea creatures. And what I want you guys to do is just kind of draw and trace this and color it in. Okay, now we could live trace. I don't want you cheating. Okay, I want you to just kind of make these shapes. And if you have something like the shark, you're going to be using the pen tool. But we'll start with the bubble. All right, up here. Two bubbles here. Just kind of draw a circle. Right, and it's got a white stroke or black stroke. Just kind of give it something like that and put that in place. And I can drop the opacity up here to see where that other shape would be. All right, so I could do a square, a rectangle, and just do a square rectangle. Okay, and then I'm going to use my touch type tools or my tools to kind of round it a little bit. No, I don't want to do that. Let me convert my corners. So I'm clicking on it with the anchor convert and kind of just moving it up. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to zoom in. Let's use my Bezier curve. I'm just trying to create that little shape there. There we go. Something close to that. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to pull that over here and drop it in. I'm zooming in. Again, we're working on the layer above. Just kind of putting it in. Going back to my tools, and I'm selecting the points. Kind of give it a little bit of a curve like it's doing. Again, you can use your own interpretation to some degree, but I want you to just kind of play with it and see and get it to kind of maybe be the best that you can. A lot of this is just getting your mind and muscles to kind of react to the tools. And then color as you go, right? So we've got that square, and let's pull up a little color swatch. See, now it defaulted to no color swatches because it came in as a black and white. I'm going to open up. I thought there was a kids stuff. Let me see if I like that one or not. Yeah, that's okay. And I'm going to put and make this my swatches. And I'm going to color that there. I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to make that there. And when you're done, you can pull your opacities back up, so you're just going to get the shapes that you want. Okay. So that's pretty easy with that. The pen tool we haven't done a lot with, but again, use the pen tool and just kind of remember click and drag will give you the Bezier curves and give you points. And you can kind of click and drag around. And you can come back and add in and modify later. As long as I have points, I can come back. So just kind of getting used to working with the pen tools and such. You're going to come back in here and move your points, adjust the look below, drop the opacity down. You can kind of see the layers below, so you have an idea of where you're trying to move your points to and how you want them to twist and turn, or potentially take away. Oh, I don't need that point. Come up here to the delete anchor point, click on the point you don't want, right? So you can come back through and modify. So, start working with that. It's just a simple exercise to kind of trace these simple C characters, and then just color them in, okay? And I want you to kind of work on that over the weekend. I think I got a lot of the record albums. If you're still working on that, by all means, keep working on that. If you're working on a book cover, by all means, keep working on that. But I want you to just kind of play with this to get a little bit more used to creating shapes and tracing. Because again, this is something you're going to be doing, right? You're going to be, drawing something up and bringing it into the computer, and then you're going to want to trace it to be the way that you want it to be. And you're just going to do that on a new layer. That makes sense? And when you're all said and done, just save it and send it to me as a AI file. So I did this PFP. I don't want that. File, save as. Don't save as a PDF, save as an AI. Okay? And then send that to me. Okay, no rush on do that. Yeah, I'm going to say send it to me for Tuesday if you can. I know things are busy and things are crazy, so don't sweat, but I want you to work on this. Okay, so put your name on the file and then save it as an AI file, Illustrator file, and send it to me. Because that way I can see your layer work and make sure make sure you're okay. If I see any issues or problems, I can make sure that I re-go through those items with you guys. All right, questions, kind of what we covered today. So this file is available again on the website. Bring it in as a new layer, draw on top a second layer, and just kind of color it in over the weekend. Finish up or work on the albums if you're not done. Book covers if you're not done, get all that stuff to me. Make sure your name is on those, and we'll go from there. Questions?